Welcome to Passing the Plate, the podcast that's all about food, traditions, and the incredible connections they create. I'm Ashley Covelli, the food writer and recipe developer behind Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen.
And I'm Lisa Lisson, the genealogist and family history expert behind Are You My Cousin? We are your guides on this flavor-packed adventure. We're not just talking about recipes. We're diving into family history, exploring new cultures, and preserving favorite recipes for future generations. In short, we're celebrating the stories and tastes that come with every bite.
So grab a seat at the table and let's head out on a journey of flavor, tradition, and connection. This is Passing the Plate, where every episode is a feast for the senses and a celebration of togetherness.
In today's episode, we're talking about one of the world's most beloved treats, the donuts.
We've talked about donuts several times in the past, including my friend Stephanie's Oneida family tradition on New Year's Eve, and also back in episode 45, where we talked about Thanksgiving traditions, because Lisa found that donuts were actually popular on Thanksgiving in California back in the 1930s. That was something she found in the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Who knew?
I know, that was really a surprise to me, and well, it was kind of fun too, right?
Yeah.
So Ashley, can you define a donut? What is it?
Well, the first question that comes to my mind is, why are there two different common spellings for donut? You've got the D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T that's got the word dough in it, and then just donut, D-O-N-U-T. So I always wondered if there was a difference between those two, but my first job when I was a teenager out in Wisconsin was working at Dunkin' Donuts, so I tended to be partial to that second spelling with the shorter, the more abbreviated one. But I did look up the difference, so internet research disclaimer. Both D-O-N-U-T and D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T are correct spellings of the word, but D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T is the original and preferred spelling by some style guides. So the longer one, the original spelling, appeared in the early 19th century. It's the preferred spelling in style guides and dictionaries. The spelling D-O-N-U-T, donut, was popularized by brands like Dunkin' Donuts and Mister, which I haven't heard of. Have you, Mister?
I think I have, but wasn't until well into my adulthood when I heard about that.
Okay. And then it says, and that's part of a tradition of phonetic-based spelling reform, which is kind of interesting because there are several words that I can, that it seems that the spellings have changed over the years.
That is interesting. And so it's interesting that you kind of came up with the D-O-N-U-T spelling of donut more because growing up, I've always spelled it D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T. But if it was popularized, that secondary spelling was popularized by Dunkin' Donuts and Mister, we didn't have those where I was growing up.
Oh, okay.
I'm from North Carolina, guys. We are the home of Krispy Kreme donuts, and it is D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T. These are my favorite types of donuts. In fact, I remember the first time having Dunkin' Donuts, and I was like, what is this? This isn't what a donut is supposed to be. Because, you know, those Krispy Kreme donuts, if you've never had one, they are lighter, they're less cakey. And my grandmother would take me to the Krispy Kreme store, and they have this big light up sign. And if it's lit up red, it means they have hot donuts ready to eat. So they're right out of the cooker or whatever that is.
Fryer,
the deep fryer,
yeah.
basically. The deep fryer, basically. These things are. But we used to be, you could go in and you can watch the donuts on the little conveyor belts. You can see them, from when they're put on the conveyor belt, and then they go through the deep fryer, and it shows you how they flip them over. So they're brown on both
that part's
sides.
so cool.
That is so cool. Oh, but here's my favorite part. Then it gets up on the little conveyor belt, and it gets all the sugar glaze that gets on them. Because, all right, that was my favorite part. And you could just see them go, and then you could eat them hot. It's really cool.
Yeah, we had both Dunkin' and Krispy Kreme where I grew up in Indiana, and I remember the light when you knew that they were fresh. But last summer, for the first time, my son had seen a Krispy Kreme because we were out in California, and he was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "You are in for a treat." And for them, if that light is on, and I don't know if this is everywhere and I just don't remember it, but if that light's on, you can ask for a free donut, like while you're in line, if they're making them fresh, and they'll literally take it with their little, like wax paper or whatever. They'll take one and they'll just hand it to you. And I mean, you still order donuts because, like, how could you have just one? But yeah, you can get a free one, and it's like the freshest donut. It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I've not ever heard where you could actually ask for a free one and get one
You,
unless it's, I think, like, Talk Like a Pirate Day, you can get one, at least in our area,
you
but
might want to look it up if you
there
have
might
them
be
by you.
certain times, yeah, but you're right, you can't eat just one. It is you could go through an entire box really fast and not even know, but so he and the when it comes to Krispy Kreme donuts, they are so well beloved. There is a famous road race here. I can't it's a little bit longer. I think it's a little bit longer than a 5K, but basically it's called the Krispy Kreme Donut Run, and you run from the bell tower at NC State University all the way downtown to Krispy Kreme. You're supposed to eat the dozen donuts and then run back. Now, I
A
can't
whole
imagine because I think I would
dozen?
just be a whole dozen.
Oh,
Now, to be honest, that's the purest way of doing it. Many people they run that race and they get their box and they come back. And so they
yeah.
don't necessarily eat it. Now, I I've never run it. I don't know if you actually can win the race if you don't actually eat the donuts. I don't know any of the details.
Oh.
It is a uh, charity-based race,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's it raises a lot of, and it is hugely popular around here. One day I'm going to
So,
do it, but I won't eat the donuts
so is it's like part
at the time.
competitive eating contest, part race?
I think so. I can't imagine. Man, I would run for the box and come bring them back, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine eating. First of all, eating a dozen at one time, but then running after eating a dozen at one time because I think I would just be sick.
Yeah. I know one of the first times I visited New York, my now husband, we were looking for, he's like, I don't think there's any Krispy Kremes in the city. And I was like, I feel like there's gotta be. And I actually went into a Dunkin' Donuts and asked them if they knew where, this was in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I asked them if they knew where the Krispy Kreme was, and they told me where it was. I think it was in like Penn Station or something. They all laughed, but then they all, him and his friends, they all got to try the Krispy Kreme. So they were pretty impressed with them.
I know. Well, speaking of donuts in New York, because you and I, when I visited you one time,
Hmm.
you took me to a really good donut place. It was there in Central Station, I think it
It was
was.
in Grand Central. Yeah. That
Oh,
was the donut plant. Hmm.
oh,
Yeah, they
those
have a few
donuts were delicious.
locations. They have a lot of different donuts, and they actually, even their vegan and gluten-free ones, even if you're not vegan or gluten-free, you will love them. They are so good. That's a great place. The one that you and I went to is right next to one of the Metro North train entrances, like one of the tracks. So it's nice because if depending on how soon you get in, if you have time before you catch your train, you can go in and grab a donut or a couple. Um, yeah, that was a
I might plan those train trips a little earlier.
well, there's one on the Lower East Side. I know we've talked before about Big Onion food tours. I want the time that I did one of those food tours, it was a walking tour of the Lower East Side. It happened to be National Donut Day, and my friend was in town from Texas, and I was like, "Well, we're right by the donut plant. I feel like we have to go there." They were giving out free little mini donuts for National Donut Day, which I don't remember what day of the year that is, but a wonderful
Remember
holiday.
either, but I've been known to make my rounds of the donut stores on donut day.
I feel like there's a lot of variety. Like you were talking about Krispy Kreme, that's like a yeasted donut, very light and fluffy. Out here, I know there's a big difference between the baked, like cake style donuts and the deep, the real fluffy yeasted donuts. But out here in New York, there's like apple cider donuts are really big. They're like coated in cinnamon sugar. A lot of people get those during apple picking season. Then you have like kind of the bigger donuts like apple fritters or bear claws. Those are like kind of next level giant. I feel like those are more of a meal. They're so big, and indulgent. And then there's, the filled donuts. You've got the jams, jellies, custards. I know my mom really liked Dunkin' Donuts used to have Long Johns. Do they still have those? It was like instead
I've
of a
never heard of
circular
that.
donut, it's like a long oval. And then some of them, they would be like with chocolate frosting or vanilla frosting. They might have had one that had both. And then some of them were filled with custard, kind of like a Boston cream kind of situation.
Seen those. I didn't know
Hmm.
that some I've never heard them called Long
Long
Johns
Johns.
before.
I don't know if that was like a Dunkin' specific terminology. You know how, like they have munchkins for the little donut holes. I'm not sure if
Mm.
that was that or not. Um, we have some really great places in my area in New York. There's one called well, we have one called Duck Donuts that's very similar to a place called Fractured Prune, where you walk in, they have all these different combinations you can get with like the the flavor of glaze, the topping, and like sprinkles, different types of cookies and candies and everything. But when you go in, you tell them how many donuts you want, and they fry them fresh, so they're made to order. So it takes a little longer, but they come out, you can't even eat them. They're so hot when they first come out, but they have some really fun combinations. Like you could get like lemon glaze with a raspberry drizzle and sprinkles, or, there's just some really, really creative, I feel like, combinations.
Wow, that sounds I would have a hard time making a choice when it comes to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to go with your heart, just like whatever stands out immediately. Or you could do like they'll have like I think they did like a barista series, so there was like a dozen that were all they were all inspired by different types of coffee beverages. Another favorite one, this place used to be in my town in Ossining, but they're up in Beacon now. They're called Peaceful Provisions, and they all their donuts are vegan. And again, you don't have to be vegan, and they're like just insanely delicious. But that place, they open and then they close when they sell out, and it's like if you don't get there in time, you don't get any donuts, which is a bit of a bummer. Yeah.
They've got that scarcity component going.
Yes, 100%. And then I think one of my favorites, I got to try it when I was out in Denver. I thought it was only like a Seattle kind of thing, but Voodoo Donuts, have you ever been to Voodoo Donuts?
No,
That
I've not
place,
heard of them.
oh, it's so cool. It's like they have a lot of things with like cereals. Like me and my son got one that had like um, Fruit Loops on it. They have like really intricate decorations. They change their specials all the time. They're just, and the whole place it's kind of an experience. It's bright pink, but like kind of goth leaning. It's a super fun place. That one, they're not cheap, but they are memorable for sure.
Oh, I'll try one next time I see what's time I'm in an area that actually has those. I'll have to pop in and see.
Have you ever asked Grandma for one of her secret family recipes? We've all been there. You try to bake her signature dessert and it's a total flop. She swears she told you exactly what she does, a pinch of this and a dash of that, and bake till done. But what does that really mean? With the Passing the Plate video, webinar, and ebook bundle, we'll help you record recipes in a way that's easy to repeat at home. Learn to modernize favorite family recipes in a way that works for your lifestyle. And most importantly, preserve and share your culinary memories, recipes, and traditions with others. To learn more, head to passingtheplate.org/resources.
Actually, do you have any favorite homemade donut recipes?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the apple spice donuts before, but I think the most fun one that I've come up with is a margarita donut. It's got a little bit of tequila and orange liqueur in the glaze, and it's got lime zest in the batter and also in the glaze, and then you get a little sprinkle of salt at the end.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's a fun like Cinco de Mayo or just like Wednesday, whatever.
An any day type of
Yeah,
donut, right?
yeah.
I love donuts. I tend to think of donuts as being a very American thing or a very American food, but I
Mhm.
actually realize that other cultures probably have their own versions as well. They may just look a little different.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's so many fun variations of what we think of as just like a typical American style donut. Um, you've got things that are inspired by other parts of the world. So you've got like beignets, which you can find most famously in the States at Café du Monde in New Orleans. So those are French in origin. Um, if you aren't familiar with them, they're like pillows, just these fluffy little pillows doused in a mountain of powdered sugar, and they're just incredible. And they're when I married into an Italian family, I became familiar with zeppoli, which are very similar, but with zeppoli, they use actually a pizza dough. It was like a way to use extra pizza dough and make it into a dessert. You kind of just like cut off pieces and you deep fry them, and then they put them in a paper bag with powdered sugar and shake them up, and that coats them. So, like at an Italian festival out here, you can just get a bag of zeppoli, and again, very messy to eat, but very delicious. Those I when I was looking into it, seem to be actually Sardinian in origin. There's also a type of Italian donut called a bomba or bombolone that's often filled with Nutella that's very delicious.
Feel like I need to try those for
Yeah,
scientific research purposes, of course. But
100%.
this, I mean, okay. Once next time we get together, you're gonna have to take me to
A
find some of
donut tour,
these.
a
The
donut
donut tour.
crawl.
That's
Yeah,
it. A donut tour, a donut
there we
crawl.
go.
I love. All right. Well, I didn't realize it at first, but thinking of a more of an international types of donuts, but churros are actually
Mm,
considered as donuts. And I did not realize because, well, they're not round.
yeah. Well, actually, one of the places that I was talking about earlier, Peaceful Provisions, they make a lot of square donuts, which are, I don't know why it's fun. And so does the donut plant. Like, why is it more fun to eat a donut with corners? Still has a hole in the middle. Kind of crazy.
That
Yeah.
is kind of crazy. I don't know.
I recently tried mochi donuts when I was out in Denver. Well, I guess it wasn't that recently. Time has been flying, but I've seen them here in New York City. Also, they kind of look like those little teething rings that you have for kids made of little bubbles. They
Mhm.
were like water filled. Do you remember those?
I do. Yes, my children have those,
They
definitely.
kind of look like those, but much more delicious. And they had some really fun Japanese inspired toppings.
Need to try those as well.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot about donuts and lots of sweet treats that I definitely want to try, but I'm curious, Ashley, are there savory donuts? Is that a thing?
I mean, I feel like there always is going to be a savory version of anything, but I decided to Google it since you had asked to see if there's like official savory donuts. And there looks like there's some fun results. I see cheddar jalapeno savory donuts, rosemary onion. There's a pizza donuts one that looks really cute. I think my son would love that. It's got, let's see, they have like a little tomato sauce in the middle and a sprinkling of Parmesan and basil leaf on top. Really cute. Um, the author said, this is from Christina's Cucina, and says, the savory Italian recipe turns out donuts that taste light and airy, like a light and airy mini pizza, but be sure to use the right ingredients. Okay. I don't know why it says that. Let's see. There's a lot of, people asking if bagels are just savory donuts. um, Bagels are yeasted dough and they're also shaped the same way, but donuts are not breads, they're closer to pastry. Um, so I feel like there are ways you could make donuts savory. There's a place out here that does things donut shaped that aren't necessarily donuts. So there's a place that actually makes rings out of mac and cheese and deep fries them. So it's a mac and cheese donut. But I don't know if it's like, where does it become a line of it's just the shape of this versus it's actually what the intended definition is?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I thought, that's a fine line there of that. I do like the idea of the rosemary and onion. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
like a wonderful donut, but yeah, it makes me wonder because donuts tend to be, I think of them more as a pastry, and you can
Mm-hmm.
absolutely have like a savory pastry as
Right.
opposed to a bread.
Right. Well, and then if we're just going off a shape, is an onion ring a donut?
Well, we can't go there. Not going on shape there.
Well, I'll link to some of my favorite local donut shops here in the Hudson Valley in the show notes. And also, there is one that I went to in Philadelphia in this big market that had amazing Amish donuts. I'll link to that also in case you happen to be in that area or if you're near somewhere with a big Amish community, like where I grew up in Indiana, and you find a bakery, by all means stop in and get something there. But I did also, we came across an article about donuts from around the world. And this we'll link it in the show notes. So they have like there's a Japanese donut that's made with fried dough filled with red bean paste. It talks about one. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of this one, but it's popular in India, Pakistan, and Nepal. That has a dough made with yogurt and it's fried in ghee, and then they soak it in syrup, so it's sugary in the center, but the flaky exterior kind of, I guess, kind of like a glazed donut, but looks different.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, there's Vietnamese donuts that are made with glutinous rice flour and filled with sweetened mung bean paste and scented with jasmine, topped with sesame seeds. That sounds wonderful. It talks about beignets, and the location on those is France and USA, which is pretty funny. Uh,
You and I need to take a road trip and expand our donut crawl into like an international donut crawl so we check out donuts around the country and around the world, all for scientific purposes, of course.
Yeah, I think it's fun too to see like in these different the different countries, but the similarities in shape and style and some fillings, but then they are still a little different. So I think no matter where you go in the world, and churros is on this list, by the way. I think no matter where you go in the world, you'll find something that's fried dough and delicious in some way.
It's hard to go wrong with that. Well, you can find the links to the recipes and donut shops that we've discussed in this episode at passingtheplate.org/51.
That's a wrap on this episode of Passing the Plate. We hope you enjoyed our journey into the world of food, traditions, and the amazing connections they create.
It's been a pleasure sharing these stories and flavors with you. Remember, food is more than just sustenance. It's a way to connect with our past, present, and future.
So keep sharing your meals, keep passing those plates, and keep creating memories that will last a lifetime. Head to passingtheplate.org/podcast for show notes.